good. So good. It's happy Easter, and it's also Christmas because it's snowing, all right? So this is the 2-for-1 Christian special today, all right? We're knocking it all out today. I want to say welcome, and I also want to take a moment as we jump into today, and I want to invite you to come back next week because we are starting a brand new series. We kind of previewed it right before the sermon bumper. It's called The Mountain, and this is going to be a great series because we're going to be talking about how Jesus, when he teaches, does exactly what you think he wouldn't do when he shows up on the scene. And the stuff we're going to be covering, it literally will impact every aspect of your life. It's going to impact your family. It's going to impact your relationships. It's going to impact your career. I want to encourage you to come back next week. It's going to be awesome. It'll be life-changing, especially if you're new. I want to invite you to come back because the welcome party's next week, and everybody loves free barbecue. Can I get an amen? Amen, amen. But what you will also love that you may not know about is we have the best dessert known to man at our welcome parties, all right? The best dessert known to man. It's kind of the world's best kept secret. It's cream puffs from Costco, all right? Now, I know what you're thinking. It's just cream puff. No, this is no ordinary puff, y'all, all right? This thing, we bring it in. We don't just throw it off like frozen and just like sits there. No, we take it out 2 hours before out of the freezer, and we bring it to room temperature, and that thing just melts in your mouth. It's like heaven on earth. So I want to encourage you to come back at least for the cream puff, all right? It'll change your life. But yeah, anyways, next week's going to be great because Easter's important, but really today what I hope happens, this is my hope for today, is that God starts something inside of you, especially if you're just coming back to church, you haven't been in a long time, that God begins something inside of you. A journey where you begin to see him work in your life in amazing ways because that's what God made us for. We talk about this a lot, that we are an imperfect church. We're not a perfect church. We're a bunch of imperfect people on an imperfect journey towards a perfect God. And he's changing us in that process, and it's amazing, but it is a journey. And so it takes steps. And what I hope that you would be encouraged today is to take another step. That's what I hope happens today as we celebrate Easter. Easter, what is Easter? It's an event we celebrate every year. About 1 billion people are going to be celebrating it today. It took place 2,000 years ago. I mean, we know it's about Easter Bunny. We know it's about Cadbury eggs. But what really is Easter about? And that's what I want to unpack today in our time together. And I want to introduce this idea because I really believe this. Easter is about risks, all right? How many of you like taking risks? You're risk takers. Just raise your hand, okay? You like skydiving, bungee jumping. You like doing crazy things like eating at Waffle House and taking your life in your hands. Every bite, just a risk. You don't know. You might not finish it. I don't like risk, if I'm going to be completely honest with you. I like being close to the ground. I like being safe. When things start getting out of hand, I like just to leave, all right? I don't like doing that. I don't like jumping. It's about, that's getting crazy for me. You know, I just don't like taking chances. But I like watching other people take chances. I think it's fun, you know. I think it's just a good time. And maybe no better opportunity for that is the Olympics. How many Olympic fans do we have? Yeah, so it's good times, right? You're watching all these things. All these events that you would never watch, you never get into, like during a normal day. But because it's the Olympics and it's the U.S. versus the world, you're like, yeah, curling. You know, it's just exciting. Or like figure skating. Like I never watch figure skating when it's on during the year, but like then during the Olympics, they just make it sound so cool, don't they, those announcers? They're like, and now she's about to try a triple sow cow toe loop with a Fruit Loop and a Lucky Charm. And you're like, I have no idea what that is, but I'm so excited to see if she lands it, right? Like, it's just going to be cool. Like, can she actually pull this off? I love watching risks. I love seeing people land cool things. And so maybe the coolest event at the Winter Olympics is snowboarding. How many like snowboarding? Yeah, and our Shaun White won gold for us this year at the Olympics. And he's got this trick called the double McTwist 1260, all right? Snowboarding has the coolest tricks because they come up with the names themselves, and they're snowboarders, all right? So, like, you can't just say double McTwist 1260. You have to say double McTwist 1260. Like, you have to say it like that. You have to kind of have that feel in your spirit, all right? And so he's got this trick. He made it up. He's one of the only people who can do it. And if Shaun White pulls this off during a run, he's probably going to win. And it's exactly what he did when he won gold, all right? So here's his gold medal run. Let's just watch this together for a second. I'll just talk over it. I mean, just look how cool it is. Drops in. Look at the sky high. Look at the air he's getting. It's unbelievable. I mean, just goes super high. Twisting, spinning. You don't know what any of these things are, but it looks super hard. And then here's the double McTwist 1260, all right? And then he pulls that off, finishes this last one, and then he knows he's won gold right there. Give it up for Shaun White, everybody. It's fun when you see someone land that, right? You did make it look easy. You're like, that is impressive. But what is not so fun is when they miss it, when they wipe out. And Shaun White actually had a massive, massive wipeout just a few weeks before the Olympics. Massive. He was supposed to go into the pipe. Instead of into the pipe, he actually put his face into the corner of the pipe. And I mean, it just had all kinds of messed up. It had 62 stitches, had to be helicoptered out of there. I mean, it was a major, major wipeout. And you just see someone, it's great when you take a risk. It's only great when you land it, right? It's brutal if you don't. And I know this from personal experience because one time in my life, I took a gigantic risk. I just went for it. I was in third grade, okay? I was in third grade, and it was a new class. It just started, and there was this new girl who was in the class, and I just looked across, and I saw her, and I took a notice. A couple of weeks, I was building up some courage, and then I thought I'd just go for it. I just thought I'd put myself out there. So I did what any other third grade did who was in love back then. I wrote a note, all right? For those of you who don't know what that is, it's a piece of paper that you would write on and send. This was way before Chromebooks were passed out in kindergarten, all right? So I kind of did this little note. I was like, will you be my girlfriend? Check one, all right? It was yes, no, maybe so. Just throwing options out there in case she was interested, maybe just giving it a shot. I folded up, made a little Chinese star, and then I passed it over to her. And when you pass the note, it was kind of a risk in and of itself because you never know if it was going to get there or not, and usually a friend would be like, I'm going to open it. Give it to her right now. So finally made it to her. She opens this thing up, and man, she had the biggest smile on her face. I thought, oh, we're in. We are in. This is going to be so great, girlfriend. She writes on it, puts it together, Chinese star. I'm like, she did a Chinese star. We're made for each other. Sends it back to me. I open it up. I read it. She said no. I thank you for that. Sympathy, awe. That's how I totally felt. I put my heart out there, and she just crushed it, right? Risks are great if you land them. They're brutal if you don't. It just hurts. Just hurts. But I think maybe the coolest thing of all, the best risk of all, is when it looks like it's heading for a wipeout, but all of a sudden you're able to land it, all right? And that happened 20 years later for me when I was with my girlfriend at the time who became my wife. We just broke up for the second time in 6 months, all right? So not perfect people are we, by far. And I remember I went on a ski trip. I was gone for a week, and I came back, and I was like, hey, can we get together? And we got together. And so we're just, kind of talking. And I said, hey, I just want to tell you, and this is where I put my heart out there, right? I was like, I really missed you. She goes, I missed you too. I was like, yeah, all right. I was like, I really like you, and I really like you too. And then I thought, I'm going to go for it. This is it. I'm going to land. This is it. I'm going for this. And I'm going to say, I love you. I'm thinking that in my head, and I go, I love you. I just put it out there. She looks back, and she says, I love you too. And you know what I was thinking? Double McTwist 1260. That's what I was thinking. Just landed it, right? It looked like it was a wipeout. We had broke up twice. And man, it's been 10 years later. We've been married. It's been awesome. Say, Scott, what does this have to do with Easter, all right? Let me tell you this. I believe Easter is God's version of pulling off a double McTwist 1260 when it looks like humanity was heading for a wipeout. Some of you are thinking, I knew this church was going to be weird. Honey, let's go right now. Hold on a second. Just give me a second. Let me explain this. When God created the world, when he spoke the world into existence, when he created it out of nothing, he took a giant risk. Because if God just wanted people to go through motions, if God just wanted people just to respond and just honor him perfectly all the time, he would have made us without a free will, without an opportunity to choose. He would have made us robots. That's what God would have done had he just wanted mindless response. But God didn't make us for that. God made us for relationship. And in order to have good relationship, you got to have the ability to choose. So God took this giant risk, and he gave us the chance to choose him, which is always the best choice. That's where life is. That's where hope is. That's where meaning and identity is. And at the beginning, that's happened. At the beginning, when you look at the Garden of Eden, it was perfect. Man and God lived in harmony together. It was perfect. It was amazing. There was no sin. There was no death. There were no calories. I mean, you can't prove it in the garden. It was just perfect, right? It was just amazing. And everything was going as God intended it until Adam and Eve decided to do their own thing. They chose not to serve God, but chose to serve themselves. And whenever we do that, whenever we choose to serve ourselves, it always goes bad for us. So they chose to serve themselves instead of God, and sin enters the world. Sin enters the world. Death, discouragement, hopelessness, depression, sickness, all of that is a result of sin. And God's great experiment, if you think about this, God's great experiment of creating the world looks like it's heading for a giant wipeout. That's what it looks like. But when you look at the Garden of Eden, you see this. From the very beginning, God had a plan to redeem all of it. He had a plan. He knew what was going to happen. He didn't set us up for fail. He just knew that we would, and he had a plan from the beginning. Let me show you this. After the fall of Adam and Eve, he tells the devil in Genesis chapter 3, he says, "And I will put enmity between you and the woman, and between your offspring and hers, and he will crush your head, and you will strike his heel." He's talking to the devil, and he says, there's going to be a son of Eve who is going to be able to crush your head. The sin, the death, the destruction that you bring to situation, there is a son of Eve who's going to fix this. There is a Messiah that is going to come, and he is going to have victory over sin, death, and the grave. And you read the Bible, and all throughout the Old Testament, there's this idea of a Messiah who's going to come. And this is what I want to focus on just for a moment with you, and it's this. God has a plan. He always does. I want you to think about that for a moment, because I know some of you need a plan. You feel like you've headed for a massive wipeout. You feel like your life right now, maybe your marriage, maybe it's your career, maybe it's just your thought life, maybe it's your mindset. You feel like, man, this thing is heading for a massive wipeout. I want you to know this. God already has a plan, and it's a good plan. And he wants to bring about his plan in your life if you would open up your heart to him and let him. That's the truth of the gospel. That's the meaning of Easter. From the very beginning, God has this plan. And what he does throughout the course of history is he lays out these prophetic breadcrumbs all throughout the Old Testament. He says, I've got this plan, but I'm going to show you this is going to be the best trick you've ever seen. This is going to be the most impossible feat. Nobody could ever do this. Nobody in the world could ever do this, but I'm going to do it because I love you and I have a plan for your life. And he lays out these breadcrumbs, right? What are breadcrumbs? You kind of leave them behind you, so in case you get lost, you can find your way home. God does this throughout the Old Testament. Let me show you just a couple of these, and then we'll kind of talk about what this means for you and me. But you go back to Malachi chapter 3. There's this prophecy that says this, "Behold, I send my messenger, and he will prepare the way before me." So it seems kind of like this random text, right? But there's this idea that happens that there is going to be a contemporary of the Messiah who's going to make relationship right. And there's going to be a contemporary of him whose sole job is just going to be to point the way to him. His whole job is going to be to tell people about him, but he's going to live at the same time as him. Who is that? That's John the Baptist. So there's prophecy about John the Baptist who's going to come, and you know John the Baptist, he's crazy. He's got this camel hair on, he's eating locusts and honey, he's drawing attention to himself so that he can point attention to who? Jesus. It's amazing, right? I mean, the fact that this one prophecy gets fulfilled in John the Baptist and Jesus, that's really amazing in and of itself. But there's so many more. You look at Isaiah chapter 7, verse 14. You know, this is the classic Christmas verse, since we're celebrating Christmas today as well as Easter. Therefore, the Lord himself will give you a sign. Behold, the virgin shall conceive and bear a son, and shall call his name Emmanuel. This prophecy existed hundreds of years before Jesus shows up on the scene, before Mary and Joseph were ever born, that this virgin will conceive. And so the angels show up, right? They show up, and they talk to Mary and Joseph, and they're like, hey, by the way, you're going to conceive. And Mary and Joseph are like, they're freaking out, and they're like, this is the one, this is the Messiah, this is the prophecy. And of course, who's going to believe him? And nobody does. Nobody's going to believe two teenagers just happen to be pregnated by God. Nobody believes that. But they go to their graves telling that story. They say, no, this is exactly what it is. This is exactly who God is in my life. They go to their grave for that. And not only do they go to their grave, they allow their two sons to go to their graves as well. Jesus, who believes this with all of his heart, and then James, his brother, who also believes this. Now, I just want to say, how perfect does your brother need to be to believe that he's the Messiah? You know what I'm saying? But James does. That's crazy. That doesn't happen. How could that happen? It can only happen if it actually happened. Prophetic breadcrumbs. God laying out this thing. There's no way this could happen. There's no way this could happen. And then there's prophecies about how Jesus is going to be, what his life's going to be like. Isaiah 61, he says, the Spirit of the sovereign Lord is on me, because the Lord has anointed me to proclaim good news to the poor. Isaiah just writes this random verse about who Jesus is going to be, who the Messiah is going to be. He has sent me to bind up the brokenhearted, to proclaim freedom for the captives and release from darkness for the prisoners. When Jesus starts his ministry, check this out. He opens up this scroll to Isaiah 61. He reads it and says, this is fulfilled in your hearing. He says, it's me. And then he does it. He heals, he restores, he helps, he brings life, he brings freedom everywhere he goes. Who could do this? Only Jesus, only God. You read, there's like 65 prophecies about Jesus that are fulfilled in Jesus. He nails every single one of them. He lands every single one of them. How impossible is that? Well, there's a scientist. He's the chairman of mathematics and astronomy at Pasadena City College. He figured it out. Just for Jesus to fulfill 8 of the 65 prophecies would be 1 in 100 quadrillion. Everybody say, wow. That's a lot, right? But Jesus did it. He did it over and over and over and over again. And then it culminates. It culminates with Jesus' disciples asking, are you the one? Matthew chapter 16, when Jesus came to the region of Caesarea Philippi, he asked his disciples, who do people say the Son of Man is? Who are people saying I am? Oh, some say John the Baptist, others say Elijah, and others say Jeremiah or one of the prophets. But what about you? Who do you say I am? And Simon Peter answered, you are the Messiah, the Son of the living God. Now, this is crazy, right? This dude was living with Jesus. And he said, you're it. You're the one. You are God incarnate. Jesus said, blessed are you, Simon, son of Jonah, for this was not revealed to you by flesh and blood, but by my Father in heaven. If Jesus was like just a good person who didn't want people to believe he was the Messiah, he would have said, no, that's crazy. But he says, no, that's right. What's he saying? I am the one who fulfills the breadcrumbs. I'm the one you've been looking for. Can I pause for a moment and just tell you this? Jesus is the one that you've been looking for. Jesus is the one that your soul wants. What you really want is not more money. Some of you are like, no, actually, I really do, Scott. I want to tell you this for a second. No, you really don't. Because once you get a little bit more money, what do you want? A little bit more. What you really want is not more fame, more sex, more stuff. What you really want is not more of this life. What you really want is more of eternal life. And that happens in Jesus. That's what Easter is. It's about God pulling off this unbelievable feat that no one else could do. And Jesus says this in his own words, John 10:10, I came so that you can have it, real and eternal life, more, better life than you ever dreamed of. It's heaven, and it's heaven right now. That's the why of Easter. That's why Easter matters. But there's another part of this great prophetic breadcrumb trail that has to be done. And it's Isaiah 53, where it talks about he's going to be bruised. He's going to be crushed for our sins. He's going to take our sins upon him. The punishment was going to be upon him. He was pierced for our transgressions. He was crushed for our iniquities or sins. So there's this part about the prophecies of Jesus that he's ultimately going to have to die. And Jesus takes this on too. He starts telling his disciples, hey, listen, I'm going to have to die. I'm going to have to go to the cross. Look in Mark chapter 8. He then began to teach them that the Son of Man must suffer many things and be rejected by the elders, the chief priests, and the teachers of the law, and that he must be killed, and after 3 days rise again. He spoke plainly about this. He's like, hey, this is going to happen. I mean, this is what's going to happen. I'm going to have to go. I'm going to have to die. They're going to kill me, and it's going to be, but I'm going to raise again. And the disciples, they love miracle-working Jesus, but they don't like death-wish Jesus. They like the walking on water. They like the feeding of the 5,000. They definitely like the water into wine Jesus. They're really into that. But they're not so much into death wish Jesus. In fact, watch what Peter says. Peter took him aside and began to rebuke him. It's like, no, Jesus, let's not get crazy here. You know, we got a good thing going. Can we just put the cross off till later? And Jesus says this. He turned and looked at them and he rebuked them and he said, get behind me, Satan. He says, you do not have in mind the concerns of God, but merely human concerns. He says, you're not seeing the big picture. You're not seeing what this whole thing about. This whole thing, this whole life, Easter, why this matters, because it's about God saying, you went this way. You were headed for a wipeout, and I'm going to turn it into a double McTwist 1260. That's what Easter's all about. It's about God landing something that could never be landed by anybody else, about him just doing one thing after another just to show you, just to prove to you that he loves you and that he has a plan for your life. That's Easter. So he would die. You say, well, it doesn't seem like he stuck the landing very good, just dying. But he didn't just die, he rose again. And that's why Easter matters. Matthew 28, after the Sabbath, at dawn on the first day of the week, Mary Magdalene and the other Mary went to look at the tomb. And there was this violent earthquake, for an angel of the Lord came down from heaven and going to the tomb, rolled back the stone, sat on it, and his appearance was like lightning, and his clothes were white as snow. And the guards were so afraid of him. Roman guards, tough as nails, they fainted. They shook and became like dead men. But the angel said to the woman, do not be afraid, for I know that you are here looking for Jesus who was crucified. This is it right here, everybody. Just focus on this if you would for a second. He is not here. He has risen just as he said. He called it. He said, I'm going to do this from the beginning of time. He said, I'm going to weave all of these prophecies. I'm going to do all of these things. I'm going to fulfill it with my coming. John the Baptist is going to testify it. Mary and Joseph are going to testify to it. Everything I do is going to testify to it. I'm going to die, and then I'm going to rise again. And he did it. That's what Easter means. He landed it. What could never be done by anybody, God did, just to show you how much he loves you. What's the result? What's the takeaway? It's John 20, verse 31. But these are written so that you may believe that Jesus is the Messiah. He says there's so many things about Jesus that have been written, and they're all written for this one point, so that you would believe that Jesus is the Messiah, the Son of God, and that by believing, you may have life in his name. Do you want to know where life is found? It's not just found here. God gives you life. He gives us things. He gives us family. He gives us resource. But all of that stuff is meaningless unless we have a relationship with him. And it becomes very meaningful when we do have a relationship with him. That's what Easter's about. God landing what could never be landed just to show us how much he loves us so that we might have life in his name. I want to show you a great story of a family in our church that experienced this very same thing. And then I want to give you an opportunity to experience it as well. Let's watch.
If I'm being totally honest, I really felt like other people who had a strong conviction towards God, they were stupid for believing something that they couldn't prove and that they weren't 100% about. And I was just curious enough to enter into a few discussions with some people about the subject, trying to see how long it would take me to put a little bit of doubt in their mind and just to instill the belief that I had that I was correct in my belief system. I really see that I was really quite weak. So I grew up in a house with 3 boys. We would get to our church, certainly Easter and Christmas, or if we did get to church, it would be, 11 to 12 o'clock mass that we would go to. Well, sometimes we would show up at like 11:40. If it wasn't important enough for my parents to get me there on time, it just really wasn't important to me either.
So I was raised in a church. I went to church regularly with my family. And as I got older through high school into college, I would sometimes go to church, sometimes not. Alec and I were dating each other. We would sort of touch on spiritual things and then sort of not, because it was a little awkward.
We got engaged, got married. Life is good.
I did want to raise my family in a church because I had grown up with that solid foundation of believing in Jesus. And so there were some things that we just needed to stop doing because it was making me feel this sense of shame. Go out and drink too much and be too hungover on Sunday mornings, even though we had thought about, let's try a church on Sunday. Our head was pounding too badly, and so we never made it out the door that day. When we had our son, we really felt like we needed to get some things together and stop. It's not like what we were doing was horrible, but it was enough that was making me feel like God was distant, even though I knew he was there, but I was creating the distance.
The pressure was growing a lot because, not only did I have my own hopes and dreams to consider, but now I've got the hopes and dreams of my wife, my son, and at that point, I'm kind of rolling into a new position at work. I got all these things working against me, and again, I feel like the only place I can go is me, and I have to carry it all by myself. I just sort of had a negative connotation in my mind when I thought about Christians, because I thought, well, here they are, trying to make it through life just like the rest of us, but are they kind of weak because they rely on someone else? Whereas me, it's always up to me. On the outside, I was handling all that, but on the inside, I really wasn't. So we decided, we'll start going to church on a regular basis, and I can't say I even had a very good attitude about it. One day I'm out in the yard doing yard work, and my neighbor comes over and he hands me an invite card, and the invite card is to come to Summit Park Church.
When we came to Summit Park Church, we just really were captivated by this message that it was an imperfect church for imperfect people. And that really spoke to me and my sometimes obsession with perfectionism. I did not have to get perfect to connect with other believers.
I started hearing messages that I would swear to you were specifically made for me. I remember one time Scott was preaching about the fact that we human beings are made and we're flawed. He asked, does anyone feel like they're good enough for what they're doing? And I sure didn't. And he told me that you don't have to be good enough. So I just felt a major relief because I could take all the pressure that I was putting on myself and give it to God. Why am I holding back from a journey with God just because I don't have 100% certainty of the outcome of that journey when I do that all the time in my daily life? do I know for certainty that my car's going to start when I turn the key in the ignition? Why is it that I'm not willing to step out in a little bit of faith and say that, hey, maybe God's real?
There was actually a moment that really stands out to me. It's when I went to a women's conference in Springfield. I had gone with a couple girls that I just met at Summit Park Church. At that time, I still felt like I didn't quite belong because I just assumed those girls are perfect. And so at this women's conference, and they were worshiping, and at that time, I had not ever raised my hands in worship. I was standing there, of course, dealing with this whole perfectionism thing, like, well, I'm not perfect enough to raise my hands to God. And it was in that moment that I felt God speak to me, yes, you, Allison, I love you. And I lifted my hands and the tears just came down my face because I just felt his overwhelming love. I came home that weekend and told Alec, I was like, I'm different. God changed me.
I got baptized here at Summit Park. That was a game changer for me too, because I think there was 150 people in the room watching me do that, publicly profess my faith in Jesus, and I can tell you that I truly do have a peace about me now that I definitely did not have before.
Jesus came to give us freedom in our life, not that we would be bound by our own chains of shame that we are shackling to ourselves like I did.
I can look back very clearly and see examples of when God was pursuing me and I logicked my way out of it. I would highly encourage any of you, get out of your way and accept the relationship with God, because God's pursuing you right now.
He's taking us from who we believed we were to who he's called us to be. And in doing so, our lives are just better.
Amen.
Isn't that great? Can we give them a big hand? So great. I love the whole idea that Alec talked about, how he looks back and he sees how God was drawing him the whole time. Breadcrumbs, right? Breadcrumbs. And I want to encourage you, if you're a Christian today, what Easter means is that God has been chasing us this whole time. It's just a demonstration of his love. So it's so encouraging. It's so encouraging to know that the creator of the universe actually cares and can do something in our lives. So it's encouraging for the believer who knows God. And that's what we're going to worship here in just a moment. We celebrate the fact, God, you love me so much that even though I was far from you, you made up the difference. You made up the distance. So that's the celebration for the Christian, but for the person who doesn't know God, it's an opportunity. It's an opportunity to take a next step. It's an opportunity to begin a faith journey where you begin to center your life more around God and less around you. And here's the thing, you can have yourself at the center of your life if you want. God will let you do it. That's the beauty of creation. He gives us a choice, but we're always going to mess it up. We're always going to, even if you have a great life, you're completely missing the point of life. And it's going to feel like a wipeout compared to what God could do with it. God will make your life better now in every facet of your life. That's who he is. It's what he does. That's the why of Easter. And if you're here and you're saying, you know what, I want that, it's available. You just got to open up your heart to receive it.